Today we have an insane episode in the 4-part build series of Project Zero. We're gonna get some kind words of encouragement from Nvidia as we unbox our 3090 Ti.
Good luck on your power bill. Warning, good luck making this fit into a case. Why'd you spend this much on a GPU? What are you compensating for? Warning, you're not a real man. Warning, this is not a practical graphics card. Warning, could have spent your money better in your build. Some interesting yet accurate statements on this card from Nvidia. This is your support guide because you're going to need some emotional and financial support after buying this card.
Then we're going to have a guest appearance from a civil engineer and computer technician. Let me put on my spectacles here.
Well, you see, according to my calculations, this rig is relatively beastly.
We're also going to be pleasantly visited by our old friend Backwoods Buford.
So getting a look at her backside or tuchus, as you can see, we've got 4 bolts or screws. They are lined up here.
Then I get ripped on by my editor Devin for lack of gaming PC knowledge. An adapter, what a rookie. A loser. What, have you been playing on console your whole life? I remember my first PC build. It's actually a 24-pin tester. What you do is you plug that into the 24-pin ATX connector on your motherboard. Then you go ahead and grab an altimeter or multimeter. This is a rather long video, but it has been broken up into chapters or timestamps, which are in the description and also reflected on the timeline of the video, so feel free to skip around. But you wouldn't skip steps on the process of building a house, so why would you skip around on a PC build? The previous episodes of the build series are linked in the description below, so if you're just discovering this video first, I'd recommend watching part 1 and 2 so you know what the hell is going on. Without further ado, I've converted enough carbon monoxide by jaw jacking and lip flapping during this intro. We should probably build a PC.
We should do that now. So the AIO, this part right here is kind of a twofer. It pulls double duty. It's a pump and also the water block that connects to your CPU. This is going to plug into the port on your motherboard, the header that says AIO pump, and then the fans that are connected to your radiator will plug into CPU fan. And some motherboards, this one included, have a port right next to it that will say CPU fan opt or optional, and that's where the other fan is going to be installed. If you have a 360mm radiator where you have 3 fans, you're going to need to run some kind of a splitter unless your motherboard has 3 CPU optional plugs or ports. As for fans, you can plug those into any fan headers that say fan. It'll usually say SYS fan or system fan, or you can run a control module like we're using in this build, which will plug into one of the fan headers and allow you to monitor and control speeds, or you can use the included remote control to control things like the RGB lighting and also the fan speeds manually that way as well. So we got this big old whopper with cheese over here. It's a Crucial MX500, not 500 gigs, 4 terabytes of storage over here. And as this is the slowest memory in our build, this is going to be for retro games, emulation stuff, BIOSes, ISO files, stuff like that, ROMs, emulators, etc. Now mounting an SSD is very simple. However, it's not as simple. This packaging is not simple, I'll tell you that. Good. Right on my carpet, right where I wanted it. So this is the actual SSD or solid state drive. And as you can see, there are 2 plugs on there. The large or longer one is going to be for power, and that is connected to your PSU or power supply unit. And the smaller one is called SATA, and you are going to need indeed a SATA cable, which your motherboard comes with, a bunch of them. And that is going to plug into a SATA port in the front of your motherboard, which this one has 6 SATA ports. Now, as you can see, there are 4 threaded holes in the back, and that is how we are actually going to mount. Little dog hair there. Mount this bad boy. It lines up with these holes that are drilled into this metal chassis or frame. So you're going to screw them in from the back. Now, this didn't come with any hardware whatsoever, but luckily our case or chassis did come with all the additional hardware that you might need to mount an SSD or a mechanical hard drive. NVMEs, you just plug them in the motherboard. Those are awesome. So back at it with our trusty Phillips head screwdriver, which is technically the only tool you really need for a PC build. Recommend a magnetized tip, of course, but if it is not a magnetized screwdriver, one of these little blocks here will get the job done. All right, we're gonna hold her from the front, screw her from the back.
The easiest way to line up these SSDs or mechanical hard drives is to look at the ugly side or basement of the case and line up the holes that way. As you can see, this one is aligned with these 4, and you do not need to tighten these in as hard as you possibly can. You just want them snug and go in a crisscross or star pattern until your SSD is firmly installed. And as you can see, we have our power and SATA connectors, if it'll focus, right over there. We'll run the wires all sleek-like and spit them out right here and plug into the motherboard. So we're gonna go ahead and get our PSU or power supply unit installed before we do the GPU, because this little GPU brace that came with the motherboard attaches to the top of your PSU via a magnet and then extends to the height of your card, or the bottom, the rump of your card, and supports it, which we need because the 3090 Ti is freakishly heavy. So let's see what comes with the 1300 GT from EVGA. You have an instruction manual over here. Good. Good quality parchment, and the penmanship is impeccable. There are a couple of pictures that will walk you through how to get this installed in your case.
case. I don't know how to read, so I'm going to set that aside. You do also have this carrying pouch here if you ever need to take this thing on the go. That's very nice. You have an absolute slew of connectors, as this is a fully modular power supply, meaning that the cables can be replaced if they get fried out, and you only have to use the cables that you specifically need for the components in your build, as opposed to a non-modular PSU where you have all these wires sploosion out of the back. They're kind of ugly. Little silica gel packet here. Make sure you dispose of that properly. Looks like a little 24+1 pin adapter.
An adapter, what a rookie. A loser. What, have you been playing on console your whole life? I remember my first PC build. It's actually a 24-pin tester. What you do is you plug that into the 24-pin ATX connector on your motherboard. Then you go ahead and grab an altimeter or multimeter, one of them little electronic doodad McDoohickeys. I got one in the garage, actually, that I've never used. And you stick the 2 turkey basters on it, the 2 niblets that stick out of it, and you check the pins or prongs on your motherboard to make sure you're getting enough current out of her, enough voltage, enough wattage. I never use that method. What I do is I use my hands like the good Lord intended. I lick my fingertips, I grab the pins, I twist, and I snap them off. I'm just kidding, don't actually do that.
Very nicely packaged with some foam blocks to keep it in place through its travels to you. And this is the actual unit here, the 1300 GT. It is a 1300 watt 80 plus gold power supply. It does have a silent fan on board, a whole slew of plugs in the back here. So as you can see, there are 4 screws right there, and there. Those are going to line up with 4 cutouts in the back of your case. That's where you bolt it up. This is your on and off switch. There's also a eco mode over here. This thing's going to be in performance or sport mode all the time. Sport plus mode. Now, whenever you are removing or installing a new part or component, switch off your power supply unit at the back. You can also take it a step further by unplugging it. But just because your tower is shut down doesn't mean there's not residual electricity pulsating through your system that can cause some issues. Jay's 2 cents made a pretty good video on that. Just turn it off from the back of the power supply. You're going to go in through the front like this. And this is why you don't want to install your GPU yet. You have all this room for activities right now. And there is these rubber pads here on the bottom of the case, which is nice. Perfect. She fits like a dream. So it's on these foam blocks, which will keep it from getting scratched, scraped, and also reduce vibration, which is good. In combination with not having a mechanical hard drive, there should be like 0 vibration, really. Does it come with hardware to mount this bad boy? Like the screws. I mean, I have the screws, but it'd be nice if it included them. And it does not. It does not come with the screws to install it. That's weird. I don't know if I like that at all. This is the perfect example of why I recommend to get yourself a little PC hardware kit prior to starting a build, because this has everything we need.
So getting a look at her backside or tuchus, as you can see, we've got 4 bolts or screws. They are lined up here, and you're just going to go ahead and screw it in from the back.
Now I've got all the wires or cables for the front I/O of the case or chassis. What we're going to do is run these through one of these cutouts or pass through to the basement or ugly end of the PC that will not be seen. Then pass them through and plug them into the motherboard where they need to go, which I'll show you where everything goes right now. To find out where to plug everything, consult the instruction manual of both your case and your motherboard. In this case didn't come with very good documentation, which is surprising for a $360 case. Now starting with HD audio, which is labeled, it has a little bit of a plate where it is blocking off one of the pins. And if you look at the back of the motherboard, you will see a plug that says AAFP, and that is also missing this pin right here. So that is going to plug over there, bam, through this little cutout right here. Now I don't like how ugly this cable is right here, that the cable wrap doesn't come all the way up here, and you have all these colored wires exposed. Not a huge fan of that. I might wrap this myself with at least some electrical tape. Next up, this large cable that is actually broken into 2 cables is USB 3.0 as labeled from the top here. And you do have a large plug here, which is labeled U32G1, which stands for USB 3.2 Gen 1. And that is where you are going to plug this cable. It has a little notch, and you are going to line that up. Awesome. We're going to do the same thing, running this through the ugly end. Pass it on through, and give it the old how do you do. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Heard a nice little snap into place. It's the sound of my motherboard breaking. Try and pull some of this excess wireage through here. All right, now this plug right here, which isn't labeled anything, but does have a very unique connector or fitting, is going to be for your USB-C port, which is USB 3.2 Gen 2. And that is going to plug right here. Nope, it does not go in either way. It has a special way it goes in. If you have to force it, you don't like that. Now this is where it gets a little bit complicated and you might run into some issues, so your PC might not power on. The reset button doesn't work. Maybe there's case lights on the front, like an LED status indicator that doesn't work. As you can see, there's 2 single pins right here, power LED plus and power LED minus. And then you have power SW over here, which is a 2-pin connector. Now, according to the instruction manual, these are the pins that you are supposed to plug it in at. So now we're gonna get this massive, power-hungry, freakishly expensive graphics card mounted into that PCIe 5.0 slot, which is the topmost slot right here. You are always, or at least every PC build I've ever seen, going to put your GPU into the topmost PCIe lane or slot, as generally the rest of the ports are slower generations or PCIe lanes. For example, 3.0, 4.0, and then 5.0 up here. Don't worry too much about your cable management just yet. These are all going to be wrapped with cable tubes, but that is one of the last things we do after we do some troubleshooting if we have any issues and run some system diagnostic checks. Let's get this massive GPU in there. This thing is factory sealed currently. Let's see what 2,000 US dollars looks like in graphics card terms. Good girl, holy mother of God. So I've played around with the 3080 Ti, so the 3090 Ti looks virtually identical except huge. This is massive. This is freakishly heavy. I'm not going to measure it or weigh it because I can just pop up the weight and dimensions on screen here post-editing, and I'm sure my scale and measuring tape are going to give the same results. On the back, you do have 3 DP or display ports as well as an HDMI port. Is that 2.0 or 2.1? My editor, Kevin, will look it up and pop it up on screen here.
Let me put on my spectacles here.
Well, you see, according to my calculations, this rig is relatively beastly, and it is virtually and utterly future-proof.
Which is definitely a word that you can't use in the PC community or any kind of technology space. There's already a ton of leaks about the 40 series cards. Oh yeah. But indubitably, it does have 3 display ports, which are all 1.4 alpha or 1.4A, and that HDMI port is indeed 2.1. She will support 4K at 120 Hz or 8K at 60 Hz. That's with HDR, high dynamic range, and a variable refresh rate or VRR. And those display ports, mind you, are rated for 240 Hz or frames per second at 4 freaking K, 12-bit HDR. Or it can push a clean 8K 12-bit HDR signal at 60 Hz or frames per second. Or if you're running dual DP 1.4, you can get up to 8K HDR at 120 Hz. 8K 120. Now, when they say dual, I don't know if they're referring to running dual cards because Nvidia does still support Crosslink, or it's not called Crosslink anymore, but it has a mounting bracket where you can literally mount 2 3090 Ti's simultaneously. Granted, there's a reason people don't run multiple GPUs anymore. I mean, it's just dumb technology. They're struggling for timing. They're trying to get opposite or opposing frames, kind of like the pistons in a V-twin Harley Davidson. You know, oh, I'm going to handle this one. You can handle the next frame. It's just a huge miscommunication usually. You're just better off having one beastly graphics card, which we happen to have here. Back to the video, Kevin. I apologize for interrupting. You're doing a great job. Continue your build.
There are 2 fans that work in a push-pull. This is an intake, and this one down here is an exhaust.
Real quick, because I know there's going to be one guy in the comments section, guy or gal, it's like, well, it's not really a push-pull system. It's not one intake, one exhaust. It actually is. Nvidia uses a push-pull fan system with a hybrid vapor chamber on the 3080 and 3090 coolers. If you come over to this video over here, this is a really good video from Optimum Tech showing the flow-through cooler design on the 3080 and 3090 series cards that basically uses vapor chambers, these aluminum cooling fins. These fans are basically almost like intake and exhaust, but technically, if you want to get super technical, it is one intake and one exhaust fan, but they're both intaking and exhausting. I know it's very confusing. Shoot, I'm confused, and I've researched this topic thoroughly. As you can see, there's these 2 intake fans in your case over here, these 120 mils, and they're pushing cold air in, and that's getting sucked up in here, and that's blowing out hot air. It's sucking in cold air and then blowing it out the exhaust ports in the back. So technically, they're like both the intake and both exhaust. As labeled per the Nvidia website, it is a push-pull system.
And this is also covered in heat dissipating fins, which are aluminum or aluminium for our brothers on the other side of the pond. So removing this protective rubberized gasket, condom, or tip, put you down nice and easy back in your home for a minute, which by the way, the packaging is freakishly premium. This is all hard, dense foam. And then you have your documentation and cables in here, just like the 3080 Ti. Good luck on your power bill. Warning, good luck making this fit into a case. Warning, why'd you spend this much on a GPU? Warning, what are you compensating for? Warning, you're not a real man. Warning, this is not a practical graphics card. Warning, could have spent your money better in your build. Some interesting yet accurate statements on this card from Nvidia. You do have your little quick start guide over here. Pops out with a little pull tab, like a little ejecto-cedo, cuz. This is your support guide because you're going to need some emotional and financial support after buying this card. This is your quick start guide over here. A little pamphlet or brochure, tons of lime green branding in there because that is Nvidia's theme color. AMD would have a lot of red on it, I would assume. And then you've got this cable over here, this little splitter. Ah, it's comical. So this is 3 8-pins. Let me see if I can math for a minute. 8, 16, 24. So a 24-pin connector. The power supply that I purchased actually came with this splitter because it was marketed right on the front that, hey, she's built for 30 series cards. Now I have an extra one of these. You do need this trident of glory over here, this chicken's foot or whatever you want to call this thing. Jesus Louises. It's brutal. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. So to mount a graphics card, you are going to remove these metal plates in the back here. Make sure you don't lose the screws, or you can screw yourself. And this is going to support the GPU from the back, so it's not just hanging off your PCIe slot and creating what's called motherboard sag or GPU sag, pulling down on your PCIe slot over here. We're also going to use this little brace, where's she at, to give it a little support in the mid-drift region. Okay, let's give us a little slack, because we're gonna need it. Cut me a little slack. Oh, you're a big girl. I like it. Ooh. Ow. All right, so we want to make sure our slot is open. I'm pressing the quick release button and also checking right here to make sure that she's ready to be seated. This thing is heavy. This is a two-man job. This is heavy. Oh, you know what? Oh, you son of a bitch. So actually, it looks like we need to reinstall the top one and then remove these two. So it's going to use these 3 slots here. Guess we'll find out, yeah? We'll see if this smells right. Let's give her another gander. Give the goose a gander, I've always said. Got a better angle so you can watch me struggle with this thing. It's a two-man lift for sure. Okay, she snapped into place. Okay, she's seated. Now I'm still supporting it with my hand, and we're gonna go ahead and screw in the GPU from the back here. So it's actually supported in the rear, and then also obviously by the PCIe 5.0 lane. Come on, sweetie, good girl. Now I wanna use this brace over here, which, ooh, doesn't quite reach. I got about another, I might need a little extender or a block or something, or maybe I can mount this to the side like that or something. That might be the play, yeah. I'm gonna fabricate something up. I'll fab something up. A little MIG and TIG welding, I'll fab something up on there, custom bracket or something. I don't know how to do any of that. Shit. That included power cable, plugs in here, snaps into place. So if you ever need to remove this, there is a little lever or clip. Press that down with your finger. Don't just jack it out of there. I'm gonna wait to put in the Camlink Pro because this is just gonna get in the way and we need all the space that we can have. This case is nice because there's still actually quite a bit of room to get in here and work and plug things into the back of the PSU. I forgot to mention when installing the AIO, since it does have this LCD screen on the 2-in-1 pump and water block over here, it has a micro USB cable that you will need to plug in to use this screen. It does rotate around so you can run the wire wherever you want, and it will obviously have the screen right side up, but it comes with this cable that is micro USB on this end ×2, and then an actual motherboard USB plug. Autofocus for me? Not today. There we go. So we're gonna plug this into one of the USB ports on the motherboard, and I'm gonna run this bad boy cleanly through this pass-through to the ugly end, into the basement, as they call it, where we have all of our wires hiding for now. I'm not sure why there's 2 micro USB plugs, because you only use one, and I'm not a huge fan of this design that you do have to have an external wire, but I guess that's the only way to get this LCD screen running. I could have swore that there's other AIOs that have screens out there that don't have like an external plug like this. Anyway, that was passed through up there, and then dropped down right here and plugged into this USB 2.0 port. So we are now wired for sound. The sound of the motherboard popping and sizzling because I misconnected something, and the sound of coil whine. The sound of my electrical bill uppercutting the ceiling. So I did remove this side panel so I could get easy access to the power supply. However, if you have a case or chassis that has a very enclosed area, or it doesn't have an accessible area like this where you can plug in your modular power supplies, then I do strongly recommend, well, this is the only method for you, would be to plug in all of your modular cables before you slide in your PSU and actually bolt it into place, because you won't have access to the back here if your case is completely sealed off. Luckily, this case does have pretty good access to the power supply even while it is mounted. I'm going to bring you in for a close-up of what cables or connectors are being used, where they are plugged in the back of this EVGA power supply, and why. I apologize for the audio quality. This is just the built-in microphone in the iPhone 13 Pro over here. So you are absolutely going to need this plug. It is labeled MB, not for Mercedes-Benz, but for motherboard. It is broken into 2 parts, and they do line up and clip into place. And that is for this big bad boy right here, also labeled motherboard, which will plug in right here. This is called a 24-pin motherboard connector. Down here, this modular cable named Perif is plugged into Peripheral 1, and that is this cable here, which will plug into our accessories. In this case, literally, that control module for the fans, as well as the front IO actually had another one of those accessory ports. Then SATA is plugged into SATA 1, and that is indeed for your SATA connectors if you're using any kind of mechanical hard drives, or 2.5-inch SSDs for storage. Then on the far right over there, we have 3 VGA cables. VGA 1, 2, and 3 slot have been filled, which are labeled VGA, which are going to go to your graphics card. Now the end that breaks apart like this and has 6 on one end, 2 on the other, this actually plugs into your GPU, and then the fixed end goes into the actual power supply. And that is it. As you can see, we still have a ton of vacant or unoccupied slots in the back of this modular power supply.
Why don't you tell me what this rookie bitch is forgetting? Perhaps CPU power? According to my calculations, this build is fucked.
Now this power supply, as it is marketed directly at the 30 series cards, particularly the power thirsty ones like the 3080 Ti, 3090, and 3090 Ti, does come with its own unique cable. However, I am very hesitant to use this, and in fact, I'm not going to until I do more research. I did about an hour of research off camera, and I've still come to the conclusion that I don't want to use this cable. Why? Because it's going to 2 8-pins over here. The Nvidia branded cable that comes with the card from the manufacturer is 3 8-pins over here. Now, generally each 8-pin is rated for, I think it's 300 watts. Pop it on screen here. The numbers eluded me, but each one of these slots is rated for a certain wattage, and this card requires a minimum amount of wattage to function, or definitely to go full force when you're running benchmarks or anything. I'm sure this cable can pass the same amount of voltage and wattage and current with 2 8-pins than the 3 8-pins that came with the GPU, but I'm gonna stick with these. I wish I could use this and feel comfortable because, well, it's a nicer, sleeker looking cable than having these 3. Until I do some more research, I just don't feel comfortable using an aftermarket 2 8-pin cable like this, you know? It doesn't sit right with me. Somebody drop in the comment section below if you have a 3090 Ti. I'm not so much concerned about the 3080 Ti or the 3090. The 3090 Ti is savagely more power thirsty than both of those cards. So I just don't feel like they're gonna get enough juice out of 2 8-pins. I really don't. God, she's really heavy now. If it wasn't heavy before, the case is about 20.8 pounds. Then the power supply is about another 10 pounds. And then that graphics card weighs 2.5 Volkswagen Bugs. She ain't gonna be moving much once I put her in place, that's for sure. I'm gonna park her and she's gonna live there for good. So we got our ATX 24-pin motherboard connector. That's gonna plug right here. You are gonna hear a nice satisfying click. Now I don't wanna crisscross any of these wires. I wanna keep them pretty clean because I am gonna come in here and tie everything up with Velcro tiebacks. I don't use zip ties anymore because if you ever need to remove them, they're kind of sloppy. Velcro tiebacks, and then also cable tubes, which I showed you earlier. Gonna round out the cable management department. Line up the hole and ram her home. Well, that doesn't feel right. Oh, I slipped out. No, that's right. Just use a little muscle. Don't be afraid to break her. It's only a $5,000 PC. There we go. Now, I will say these are rather bland cables. They're just black and braided. You can also get aftermarket cables in different colors, but just make sure they are rated for the same power capabilities and capacities as your stock cables. But yeah, you can always get some nice aftermarket colored cables, or you can just wrap them with cable wraps and ties to change the color without actually having to change out the cables. That's another option. Enough jaw jacking and lip smacking. Let's give her the business, boys and girls. Granted, this whole area is going to be covered with that side panel anyway, and then the tempered glass. You're really not going to see any of these wires down here, so I don't really need to do a whole hell of a lot down there in the basement. I got to remove the side panel on the other side as well to get to that SATA cable. It's a good place to grab this bitch, probably from the bottom. All right, I'm going to go ahead and remove this other side panel. Now, you can screw these down with the included Allen key. I just have these hand tightened because I'm probably going to be popping these panels off quite a bit. Now, as you can see, this side over here is just a hot mess. Now, that's to be expected. This is what's called the ugly end, the basement. You know, this is where all the wires go, but I'm still going to clean this up with wire ties and whatnot. Granted, this side will never be seen. So the SSD is now connected to power, but we need a SATA cable from our motherboard kit in order to get her transferring data. You know what I'm saying? The old MOBO, a motherboard. So the Asus ROG motherboard did come with 4 SATA cables. They are all the same length. 2 of them are straight, and the other ones are L-bins like this. Little 45s. So that is actually what we're going to use back here. So this is our SSD over here. It is connected to SATA here, which will be plugged into a SATA port on the motherboard, and that will actually transfer data. And this is to get power to our SSD, and this is plugged into the PSU or power supply unit. Down there in that heap of bundle of ugly wires down there. So I made a bit of a rookie mistake. It would have been interesting when I tried to turn the PC on. I guess I assumed my CPU was going to be using some alternative power, maybe some solar panels, maybe some windmills, maybe a freshwater stream with those little wooden paddles. But I certainly didn't plug in the CPU power plug to the back of the power supply, and then plug that into the CPU power slot up here. We should do that now. So again, same thing as with the graphics card. The end that is all one piece plugs into your modular power supply. And the part that breaks apart, this is 2 4-pins that snap together to make a 8-pin, like that. So now that I realize my CPU needs electricity and it's not running on corn, I've plugged these 2 ports up here. If you have 2 8-pin connectors on your motherboard, go ahead and use them. Your motherboard will modulate the power to your CPU. However, if you are going to be doing some overclocking or you have a power-hungry CPU, such as a 12900K, you should be using both 8-pin connectors. CPU 1 and 2 ports on the modular power supply are being utilized. As you can see, I have 2 cable bundles for my last PC. These are the 3 display ports, well, 2 display ports and an HDMI port. And these are all my USB plugins. They are held together with Velcro tie downs and then also this cable wrap here. Now, granted, it looks a little ugly behind the desk right now. However, we are going to clean everything back up with cable trays and cable management 101 and all that other good stuff. So let's plug this bad boy in. Oh, you know what? We forgot something. The CamLink Pro needs to go in. Well, I need to rerun all of my USB cables and display ports, like DP and HDMI, because this case is a lot taller and bigger than my last one, so none of these ports or plugs are going to reach where they are currently, so I need to pull them out from the cable trays underneath the desk to get them a little bit more slack so they'll reach the actual plugs. Ooh.
So you're going to see me rocking a hell of a lot of dog hair. I was wearing a black shirt in this build, and I had to lay on my back and my crack and my side and lay proned out like I'm playing Call of Duty to get underneath my desk and basically pull every single cable for all my peripherals to give them a little bit more slack, because not only is this a much larger case, but it's also at a slant or an incline. They just do that for cosmetic looks. But the motherboard is very high up, so needed a little more slack. Just want to give you a little warning. You're going to see an astronomical amount of hair on my shirt. I have a dog, a German Shepherd. I was just rolling around on the carpet for like 30 minutes off camera.
I want to start this freaking beast. I'm nervous, for sure. All right. Kind of nervous. Let's do it. Fans are spinning on the AIO. Okay, we got picture. All the fans are illuminated, the GPU is on, the RAM is on, the AIO is on, the motherboard is on, the fans are spinning on the AIO. Everything seems okay. We are throwing a shitload of error codes on that motherboard over there, like 5 or 6 codes. However, that might just be because it's recognizing all new components because it's a, first start. But I will look up all those codes in the MOBO. That is cool that it has that error code indicator up there.
I looked up all those codes and they were indeed because it was the initial startup. I had absolutely 0 issues with this PC. I've had no crashes, no issues, no components were improperly plugged, which is awesome. It was a very smooth build. Generally, you run into like 1 or 2 little weird issues, like maybe the components aren't communicating well or anything. But this is the first build I've ever done for myself or a buddy or anything where there was 0 issues whatsoever. I guess we can call it Project 0 for that reason, but it's 0 compromises because of the ridiculous astronomical parts we put in there.
Don't look at the cable management. You think that's bad? I'm going to give you a peek at something that's going to make you puke in your mouth. You ready for it? Keep in mind, my cable management used to be fucking good. And now, bam. If I had to leave it like that for longer than a day, I would have an actual panic attack that no amount of Zoloft and counseling would ever be able to remedy. That is horrible. CPU over here is a i9 12900K. We know that because we installed it. 32 gigabytes of DDR5. Ooh, she's only at 4000 megahertz, but that's because we have not engaged XMP, which is going to overclock our RAM to get it to those advertised speeds of 6200 megahertz. Okay, it says I got 6 keyboards installed. It's recognizing all my USB devices as keyboards. I can rest you assured that it's only 1 keyboard. And then I don't have 3 mice plugs in. Plugs it. I ain't got 3 mice plugs in. I don't have 5 hubs. This is correct as well. We do have a 1 terabyte Viper 4300 NVMe. We're also bringing up the rear with a Samsung 970 Evo. That's a 2 terabyte. That's for game storage. Ethernet, we're plugged in. Please enter setup to recover BIOS setting. A new CPU is installed. Can I scroll through anything on here? This isn't touchscreen or anything, is it? No, it's not. high resolution on that screen. She turned over with the first stroke of the key, so to speak. God, the cables are driving me crazy. The bottom fan on the GPU spinning? Yes, sir, it is. She's been running for a few minutes now with no issues. I expected nothing less from a top-tier builder like myself. There has been no fires, so that's a plus. Thought I lost my Windows 10 here. This is our operating system. I'm gonna turn it off, plug this in to one of its suck holes, one of its USB ports. Oh, that's not a power button, that's just an LED light. That glowing thing right there is just it's for show, yo. The power button's up here. Just hold it down. Cuts right off. Codes, but I think those are just saying, hey, there's new RAM installed, new CPU, new GPU detected. I don't think it's anything major, or corporal, or sergeant, or any rank of problem so far. But definitely nothing major. Major general. Oh, whoa. Peripherals are coming to life. ROG, Republic of the Gamers. All right, press F1 to run setup. Cool, so this is the BIOS. It's gonna look different depending on the brand of your motherboard. Asus ROG has this. A BIOS is a control panel for your motherboard. On the most basic level, it's going to control everything of your PC, basically. I'm gonna cut some lights in here so you can see the screen a little bit better. God, the sensitivity on the mouse is super low in the BIOS. My CPU speed is at 4900 megahertz or 4.9 G. She's at 33 degrees Celsius. This is the liquid temperature in the AIO at 31 Celsius, so the actual CPU temp, which you can display on there. We'll engage XMP later to get our full speeds on the RAM. For now, we're gonna go over here to boot, and it's our SanDisk partition right here, which has our Windows on it, and we're gonna boot off of that. Cool. Okay, so this is your initial Windows setup. Language, English, time and currency, English, keyboard input method, US. Next. So don't worry about activating Windows right now. I'm gonna show you how to get an activation key for Windows Home, Home Pro, even Microsoft Office at a later time. You'll be able to use Windows no problem even without activating it. You'll just have a watermark in the corner and you won't be able to customize things like the color of your dashboard and your toolbar and stuff like that. And we will activate Windows, but you can install a copy of Windows and not register it and your PC will work. So that's what we're gonna do now. Then it's gonna ask you what you want to install. Select Pro, because the method I'm gonna show you later for activating a key for Windows, you're gonna want Pro. And you can't upgrade later. You can't go from Windows 10 Home to Pro. Microsoft doesn't allow you to do that. It actually has to be installed as what you want. So we're gonna do Pro. Accept selling your soul to Microsoft and all of your third-party marketing data. All right, so it's gonna ask you what drive you want to install Windows on. As you can see, we have 3 drives on here that are being recognized. We have 2 NVMe M.2s, and then we also have a 4 terabyte SSD, which is this one that's showing 3,726 gigabytes of space. So that's 4 terabytes. Windows can't be installed on drive 1 partition. Show details. Windows cannot be installed to this disk. The select disk has an MBR partition table. Oh, fuck. I know how to fix that. Oh, geez. So if you have a drive you're trying to install your operating system on, it has to be partitioned as a GPT. Right click, don't left click, and go to disk management, make it bigger, full screen. So drive D over here is an NTFS currently, and that's not what we want. Right click, go to delete volume, yes. Now it's unallocated and you will be able to install your operating system on it. That did fix our issue, and now all of these drives can be used to install Windows. As it's showing, they're all unallocated, so they don't have any special names or anything like that, so you're gonna have to go off the storage size, which luckily I know what I want to install on is a 1 terabyte, and then just let her run. She's gonna install Windows 10 Pro for you. All right, so now we're at our typical Windows setup that you've probably seen 100 times, but I want to walk you guys through this because there are a couple of things that you want to uncheck and a few things you want checked. Now, it's asking to connect to a network. I don't need to use Wi-Fi currently because I'm plugged in via Ethernet, that 2.5G Ethernet port in the back. What's up? Yeah, it's flashing back there. Alexa, are you connected to the internet?
Yes. Looks like this device is connected to the internet at the moment.
Shit, what's going on here?
If you are having connection issues,
Alexa,
I can take a...
Stop.
Goodbye.
Goodbye to you too. Damn it. I guess I'll just select I don't have internet for now. When you connect to the internet, we'll try to upsell you with all this stuff. Kevin, the name the good Lord gave me. Create a password. Look away. All right, location services. Nope, it's not a cell phone, tablet, or laptop. It's never leaving the room. Don't need location services. Diagnostic data. Send info about the websites you browse and how you use apps. Absolutely not. Tailored experiences. I'll tailor it myself. It's not a suit. I don't need it tailored. Find my device. 50-pound behemoth is missing. we've got bigger problems than trying to locate it on a GPS. Ink and typing. She doesn't take ink, but she is my type. We'll skip ink and typing. Advertising ID. You're gonna get it anyway, but I'm gonna select no. So deactivate or unselect all these. Let Cortana help you. I've got an Alexa here that controls my home automation. I've got Siri on my phone. I don't need Cortana. Too many AI or virtual assistants can be confusing, so I'm good with the two I have. So right here is why my internet won't work and I'm currently not connected. I need to download this LAN driver over here for the motherboard. Now this is one of the first things you need to do when you get a new PC up and running is to install the drivers for your motherboard and your graphics card. The very first thing you should do is this right here, which is update your motherboard because it's going to activate plugs and ports and features that you need, like the internet.
This motherboard comes preloaded with a LAN driver, or local area network,
Helping you quickly connect to the internet. Would you like to install the preloaded LAN driver and Armory crate? Yes, I would. And it says it's from ASUS, so it's from the actual company of the motherboard. Hole, back on those reins, sweetheart. All is well in the world now. Downloading prerequisite services, downloading other services and components. Do it. Do it.
I love it.
Hi, can I get you two a drink?
You sure can, sweetheart. Johnny Red Neat, okay? Do it. Do it.
So a lot of the peripherals I have plugged in, for example, my Razer keyboard and mouse, it's prompting me to install the software for that, which of course I need. I'm gonna unselect Chroma Connect, Chroma Studio, Razer Cortex, all this stuff. The only thing I need is Razer Synapse, or Synapse, however you want to pronounce it. That's what controls my peripherals, like the RGB lighting, hotkeys, macros, etc. Yep, I'm gonna install HP Smart for my printer as well. It prompts me again, you sure you don't want Razer Cortex? I'm sure. Skip and continue. Get it done. Wow. Holy crap. I thought my internet was fast before. I'm getting about 900 down and 160 up, but that was on my 1G Ethernet port on my old PC. This is 2.5G, and that just downloaded a 500 megabyte file in like, I don't know, a second. So Project0 works like a dream. I have been using this bad boy for the last 3 days since we did that initial startup. No issues whatsoever, which is fantastic. This was a very smooth build. I didn't run into any weird issues or anything. I've done a little bit of editing with it. I did a little bit of gaming for a few minutes just to make sure everything worked, and it's fantastic thus far. Now, in preparation for this PC going to its home, which is going to be the corner of this L desk here, not pushed right up against the wall, it's still going to have plenty of room to breathe, plus it's an open air chassis. It's just going to dissipate heat into my room. I'm going to be sweating from the nipples on camera. Not a big deal. But back here, as you can see, I fully prepared all of my cables. I used a label maker to label every single USB port and display port that's going into this PC. So if I need to troubleshoot or I'm swapping out a component, maybe I'm reviewing a keyboard or mouse and I don't want to fumble with, what USB cable is it? I can just look at the label. But other than doing all the cable management under my desk in preparation for putting this PC in its place, now we're going to do the cable management on the actual PC itself. Starting with the pretty end over here, which is not pretty by any means yet, and then we're gonna flip her around to the ugly end, or the basement, where all the wires are living, and it is gross back there. Now, the two items that we're gonna be using to whip the cable management into place is gonna be some Velcro tiebacks, and then a couple of cable sleeves in white. So with this case, if you want to remove anything, like for example this top section, these screw on. If you use the actual Allen key or the hex key to tighten them in, you'll need to use that tool, but I just have everything hand tightened, so if I need to remove any panels, I can do that quickly and easily. And I'm just going to start by using these Velcro ties on any cables that are too long, and then also any bundles of cables that I can kind of bundle together. Now, I don't really recommend using zip ties because you have to cut them if you ever need to move anything, and you could accidentally cut the wire, or it's just a pain to get scissors in there. Zip ties aren't really that cosmetically attractive. These Velcro tiebacks I think are a little more handsome. Plus, I usually use these to keep bundles of wires together and then wrap them in a cable sleeve. So these three cables coming off the GPU can be bundled into one to look a little bit more sleek. We're gonna do that right now. Now keep in mind, you're really not gonna see this heap of wires down here. This is almost expected because with a power supply, all of your cables and wires are gonna be plugged into the back of it. Luckily, when you put those metal panels and then also those glass or acrylic side panels over the side, you're really not gonna see any of this down here. Let's see if I can rotate Project0 so you can get a better view of what I'm talking about. Right here you have three wires kind of bundled together. You have a USB 3.0 cable, which actually splits off into two, and then you have a USB-C 3.2 cable right here. Now I'm gonna pull a little bit of excess slack over from the basement or the ugly side, and I don't wanna bend or break any of these ports, so I'm gonna be gentle, you know? I know I said I was gonna leave the GPU in place, but this massive 3090 Ti is just taking up an astronomical amount of space in the case. It should just pull out. I don't, but the card's gonna pull out. Yep. Okay, this is before, and that's after. That's a fine looking build. However, I would not recommend this case or chassis because of a couple of things. First of all, the instruction manual is an absolute joke. It doesn't label any of the hardware, so you have to play the guessing game as to what goes where. But that's not a big deal. I built furniture from IKEA and Bed Bath & Beyond before, so instruction manual, who needs it? Check this out though. This glass side panel is installed or attached as per the instruction manual. This is as tight as the hardware can go, and you don't want to tighten it down too much or you'll break the glass. And 2, that was metal clanging against glass ×4. To the manufacturer Antec, please put a little rubber gasket inside of all the hardware so the glass is getting pinched between rubber, not metal. I have never seen this on a case or chassis. If you just set your PC on your desk and don't touch it, it's not a huge deal, but if you're moving it around a bunch, this is just a shitty design, for lack of a better word. So those two things are incredibly frustrating. The instruction manual looks like a child with a crayon wrote it, and every time I move my case, I get to listen to the clang of glass against metal.
So after using this case for a week and a half and staring at it for several hours a day, I want to clarify my thoughts and give you a little bit more amplifying information about how I honestly feel about it. I did purchase this rubber O-ring kit for $7.59 on Amazon, and that has rectified the issue with there being a rattling or clanging. So what I did is install 4 O-rings on the inside and 4 on the outside. The 4 on the inside were 4.5 by 2, and the ones on the outside are 6 by 3. Not really sure what measurement that is, if it's millimeters or what, but it's labeled 6 by 3 in this kit. So now that it doesn't make that rattling glass sound, I am a lot less salty about this case. Overall, I think it looks fantastic. When I stare at it, I get a tickle-in down there in the gamer nether regions. Also, I've had a couple people come over to my house, and the first thing they said was, holy crap, that is a sick PC. Secondly, it is a fully open air case, but I have not needed to clean it yet. I've had this PC assembled for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. There's a small layer of dust, but not enough to where I even want to get in there with a rag yet. So I'm planning on once a month at the very latest cleaning this PC out. I was fully planning and willing to clean this PC every week, fully take off the glass panels and dust it out, but it seems like that's not the case. Get it? It's a PC case. The instruction manual is embarrassing, especially for a $360 case. Now I will say the packaging was very premium. It was very on par with what you would expect from a high-end flagship CNC machine steel case. It was packaged very well, but the instruction manual was ridiculous. And the fact that you have to source, even though it's only $8, the fact that you have to source anything after buying such an expensive case leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Other than that, I love the size of it. It is large. In fact, it's almost like a full tower. It's a mid tower. It's almost like a full size. It's pretty damn big, which is good. You have a ton of surface area in there, so if you're ever working on it, moving cables around, changing out components, you're gonna have plenty of room to work on it. Most importantly, you have room for a ton of fans, or if you want to run 2 360mm AIOs with their radiators and 3 fans each for a total of 6. It feels incredibly sturdy. It has rubberized feet that don't scrape or move around on my desk whatsoever, and when you tap the side of it, there's a nice metal thud to it. The microphone probably didn't pick that up. I have a pretty strong noise gate on this thing. I also like the fact it's fully modular. You have those little hex rings on there, those little lug nuts, if you will, where you can take off panels as you desire. It's very quick and easy to get the glass panel off if you need. However, you can actually dust the inside without even taking the glass panels off just because there is such a wide open gap in the back. Now, one thing you have to plan for, since it is a very tall case and also the motherboard is cocked at an angle, your IO ports in the back where you're going to plug in your USB cables and Ethernet is up very high. So just make sure that you have plenty of room or slack in your cables for your keyboard, mouse, etc. So do I regret picking this case or chassis because there is a lot of competition? There is a wide, vast variety, the huge smorgasbord of cases available. No, I think it looks fantastic. I think it performs very well as far as being able to install components. Cooling is going to be a dream because it's open air. Dust and debris doesn't seem like it's going to be a nightmare, so that's cool. Now it is slightly overpriced in my opinion. It's $360 US. I understand that the materials they're using probably cost a lot to manufacture, but I guarantee it's not $360. I would like to see this case drop down to around the $250, $260 range. I don't think it's a bad buy at $360. I don't regret it whatsoever, but if they could drop the price about $90 to $100, a lot more people would buy it.
There's really not a whole lot of cable management in this basement here. There's no cable trays or cable ways or anything to help you back here. But granted, this is the area that nobody's really going to be looking at, but still, I really do wish that Antec down the road comes out with a V2 or version 2, another iteration or update to this case. Same general style. I think an open air chassis like this looks fantastic, especially in two-tone white and black like that, but expected niceties like cable management in the basement and hardware that holds your glass panel in place without grinding metal against it.
Alrighty, Stallions and Stallionettes, hopefully you enjoyed episode 3 of the 4-part build series of Project Zero. I do have linked in the description below a video explaining what to do after you've completed your PC. You've got all the hardware together, now how to activate Windows, engage XMP in the BIOS, get everything optimized inside of Windows 10, such as the taskbar and privacy settings. And we are going to finish up with episode 4, which is going to be some cinematic glamour shots of the completed build, as well as some benchmarks and my final thoughts of the entire building process. See you tomorrow. Big kisses. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers. This information will reach and assist them as well, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as honest gaming product reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. There are some hefty exclusive discount codes found only in the description of my videos and only for the audience here at Gamer Heaven. Check out Into the AM for some of the sickest looking and most comfortable cloth to ever grace my gaming giblets. If you don't want to be scorching your corneas with harmful blue light, check out Gamer Advantage, the only blue light glasses on the market that look sexy and actually work. If you're looking for a custom controller that'll blow the competition's tits back, AIM definitively has the best bang for buck or price to performance when it comes to Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch controllers. Nope, they don't do Switch, but they do gaming mice. I said doo-doo. I have links to all my other platforms and socials in the description below. If you need a quick laugh or blast of gamer adrenaline, check my short form videos out at TikTok. To get in touch with myself and the Stallions and Stallionettes of Gamer Heaven, join the community Discord, and check me out at twitch.tv where I go live every other leap year on a blue moon if it falls into an odd calendar number, and my pH balance is on point. Just kidding, starting June I'm going to be live streaming a lot. Thanks for watching. This has been AK40 Kevin hosting Gamer Heaven, and I'll see you tomorrow because I upload daily, all the time, 60% of the time, sometimes, most of the time. Peace.